morning, everybody.
Good
Welcome
morning.
to our session on reporting within Workflow Max today. I'm David from Valued. We'll do the introductions and we'll see that just while people are jumping in. Let's let you know who you're talking to. So I'm David from Valued Academy, and I am joined as always by my able partner, Liz from Gingersnap. So hi, Liz, how are you
Good
doing?
morning. Yeah, very well,
So
thank you. Do you
amazing
think
how
people are
fast the weeks roll
sick of
around.
us yet? Oh, I
I
know.
was going to
I
say we're
know.
back again, so obviously we're doing something right. So we'll not argue with that. So yes, the joys of reporting within Workflow Max. It's I think you said it very well last time. It either if it might miss the mark for you, but if you get it right, it works really, really well. So I think
Yeah.
this is certainly a really useful session in terms of getting the best out of the reports within Workflow Max.
Yes.
We've got quite a few people registered for the course today, so we'll see how many we can get on. And we'll just give them a minute or two to join, just while those numbers climb. But yes, the basics of it today, we'll be having a look at just the ins and outs of where to find your reporting within Workflow Max, and the difference between the standard reports and those that you can construct yourself. Those of us who work with the old platform tend to call them Report Builder. It's not called Report Builder anymore. It's just custom reports. But yeah, old habits die hard, I suppose. But like us, Liz. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Well,
One day we will have to stop talking about the old product, but you do know that.
I was wondering that. It's a bit like, say, after somebody comes back from, New Year, and how long do you leave it before you stop saying Happy New Year? It's going to be how long do you
Yeah.
stop it before you say, right, I'm not talking about Workflow Max 1 anymore.
Yeah.
Let's
Because there will be people who never heard of Workflow Max 1. Hello, Workflow Max what?
Well, this is just it. We may have several of them on the call, so we'll see.
Yes.
There will be plenty of opportunity for you to ask your questions, folks. And just a heads up now, if you would like Liz, sorry, Liz,
Oh, thank
dropping
you.
in. If you would like Liz to build any of the reports live for you, then absolutely, when we get to ready for that section on custom reporting, please drop a comment in the Q&A and say what you would like to see, if you've got any preferences. And Liz will certainly be able to have a look at a selection of those and see what we can put together. We might not be able to answer all of your queries live, but certainly in terms of building the most popular ones, then we'll certainly do our best to give you some live examples of what you can do and how you can do it. So,
Yep.
The reports within Workflow Max. I'm going to just dive into the product. And you can see within your dashboard at the top, quite obviously, you have a reports drop down just there. So when you click onto reports itself, it will bring you into your reports list, and it always drops you into all reports as a starting point. Now, this is not the only location that you can find reports within the system. So, for example, if we were in a job record where it says print PDF at the top, we also have standard reports baked into your jobs as well. So we're going to have a look at one of those in just a minute, particularly the financial summary report, which I think we're probably right in saying, Liz, is one of the most useful reports in Workflow Max. I'm sure you would agree.
Yeah, it's your thumbnail view, isn't it, of how your job is doing?
Pretty much. It's certainly a report that I know all of my clients use. I don't know anybody who doesn't use those at the minute. So yeah, we'll have a little look at that. But then, as we said, in the list of reports, you will see that you then have your standard and your custom reports. What are favorites? Everybody screams. Well, maybe not screams, but asks about. Anything on the left-hand side that has this little yellow star next to it. So we just click on the star to turn it yellow. This will be added into your list of favorites. So if we click onto the favorites tab itself, we'll see it will bring together anything that we had selected, and it will present them to us. In addition to that, we will also be able to click on the reports dropdown and see those favorites listed out straight there for us. So it saves the need to dig around and find the report that you used last week or last month. You can easily identify what you're looking for. So it's just a handy little tip. The nice thing is that we can favorite standard reports as well as custom reports. But let's have a look at our first example of one of our standard reports today. So within a job record, it is extremely useful to be able to get a snapshot of your performance either to date or at the end of your project. So that financial summary report is absolutely a Bible. It is just a really, really useful report that gives you plenty of information on the job in question. So here we can see that we've got the content of our job. So we've got our task. I only have one task on this job. We have our series of costs listed out. And what you can see is that we've then got the columns telling us what has happened with these items. So the first two columns refer to if we have had a quote as part of this job. I would advise that we do have a quote for this very reason, is that we can now use it as a comparative to what has actually happened in the job. So what we have here, first of all, in terms of my installation task, we can see that I had an estimated cost via my quote of 500. I also had a quoted price of 750. We can see that somehow I've been exceptionally efficient at my job, and it's only cost me 120. And the billable value calculated against that time is only 200. Now, because this was based on a quote, we've then invoiced the full 750. So essentially, we've got a lot of additional profit sitting in this job. So if this is our final position, we'd have done very, very well. Bearing in mind, this might only be partly completed. We might have invoiced it all up front, but we might still have work to do in here. So there are ways that that might increase in terms of the actual cost and the billable amount, but it's giving us a great snapshot of how we're performing. And the same is true for our costs as well. So we can see, for example, if I had, let me find one, there we go. So an estimated cost there of 1,800, and we were going to charge that on at 2,250. It's only actually cost me 1,500, and the price that has then incurred, or we would pass on if we used our calculated markup, was 1950. So again, I've written on some additional profit there. If we are looking at our summary at the bottom, we've got that estimated profit. Now, this is what was calculated on the quotation itself, but it's reiterated here. So we can see that the estimated profit was 1,014, sitting at 22.7%. Simply a calculation of the quoted price less the estimated cost. When we get to the end of the project, or once we've at least raised a final invoice, we will also have an actual profit calculation begin as well. So what we will then see is that that will compare our final invoiced value against our actual costs to then give us the comparison, and we'll be able to see exactly how we've performed against that estimate. So it's just a really, really good yardstick. Further in the report, you do get a lot of additional information as well. So we do have a time summary. We can see what time was spent against our actual and estimated. We can see our efficiency. So you can see how that's been driven. And here, obviously, we're at a very efficient state. We're above 100% efficiency, which is awesome. And you can see, again, in terms of billable and non-billable time, etc., we've got all sorts that are addended to that report. But in general, it's just a really, really useful summary. There are other reports within the standard reports that I would say do fall into that really useful category as well. Just for my benefit, I've highlighted these as my favorites today, so this is why these are sitting here. If you wanted to run that financial summary report across numerous jobs, then you can do so under your standard reports as the job financial summary report. So if I click through into here, this is where I hope that I got my date range right. So let's see if I've got any information in here. Oh, let's have a look. So if I was to open up my job start dates, let's push it to this year, let's say, and refresh, I will be able to then see my information presented to me. So there we go. So I can then see listed out job by job, that same information across each and every job. Now, obviously, this is just my demo data, so this is not necessarily going to be very illuminating, but you get the idea. You could run this and then look at those and get a real snapshot across your business as to how you are performing. In any of the standard reports, we have a number of features that are worth noting. The first one we've just seen is the date picker. This also will apply for the custom reports as well, but we'll just look at the one in the standards for now. You've got your preset dates on the left, which you can select. Alternatively, you can select a date from the calendars that we have here. This, correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, but I get more complaints about this than I do about anything else at the minute, because this is a real pain to try. I'm trying to be nice about this, to actually select. If I was to, let's say I go and look at something for, last year, let's say I go back to January last year and start the report. As soon as I click on this, look what it's done. My date on the right-hand side has now moved. If I said, well, actually, I need that to be in December, I've got to then scroll back through and pick it. And if I'm not careful, notice it's highlighting all of those dates. That does work. But sometimes if I don't get the combination of picking the dates in the right order, these two dates keep jumping backwards and forwards to catch up with each other. And it just goes round in circles. So yeah, whether you start with the start date or the due date, do try and get it so that it highlights these dates.
Yeah, there's a knack to it. When we first started, we just were really annoyed with it.
Oh,
Calendar does
horrible memories. But yeah,
now
absolutely.
you know you pick to start, but I always pick the year first, and then I go back to the month.
Yeah, I've got into that habit. You can actually click into here, as you saw me do, pick your year. You can do the same on your month as well. Pick your month and then pick your day. I often start with the end date rather than the start date, but it's personal preference. It's whatever you find works easiest for you. Before you then move ahead and refresh your report for that date range, just make sure you're basing the report on the right date. So this date range currently is applying to jobs start dates. We could look at job due dates if we wish to, but again, all that this report is then doing is reporting on the entirety of the job at this point in time, but for jobs that fit this criteria. So for any job that started between these dates, where is it currently at this point in time that I'm running the report? And sometimes things like that are just worth understanding in terms of what you're actually looking at. This isn't a snapshot saying at the end of December in 23, is this what this job looked like? It's not. This is the current point in time of that job, but because that job started within that date range, it's being included in this report. Yeah. We also have, once you've picked your date, do click refresh. If you don't click refresh, nothing will happen. But then we do have a series of filters. So all of the reports now have these wonderful filters down the right. So whether we want to select a specific client, so again, if I wanted to send a particular report to a particular client, I could select that client in the filter. We have the job state, client manager, job manager, and again, the ones based in the job, because the records of those names in the job could differ from those on the client record itself, but there's all sorts of filters that you can access there. We've then got, coming soon, the ability to email that out. Now, that's been coming soon for a while, but it is in the pipeline, so do keep an eye on that. In the meantime, if you do want to send that out, you can export this as a PDF and simply send it through an email yourself. So it's not impossible, it's just choosing the right option. We also do have the ability to export these into CSV. So if you do want to extract that report and perform additional calculations on it, then you most certainly can do. Again, just coming back to the list of reports, I would say of the standard reports, and there are quite a number of them. If we look at the standard reports here, I'll just click into the tab. You'll see that they cover all sorts of information within the system. So we've got aged balances, aged WIP. Again, you'll see the ones that aren't quite there just yet. These are still being built out. This is a very large engine, so it can't all get built in one go. But we've got billable time, we've got client revenue, you've got job billing, you've got all sorts of information, monthly profit reports, you name it, there's a report in there for it pretty much. So I would certainly say before you go gallivanting off to build custom reports, do have a look at the standard reports and see if there's something there that works for you. Again, a really, really useful one, client time detailed report. This is a really wonderful way of looking at something so that you can either assess it internally, make sure that you're happy at how jobs are progressing, or indeed you can send these onward to a client to say, well, these are the jobs that we're working on for you, and this is where they're currently up to. So you can see in here, same issue applies. If I wanted to filter this by a particular client and apply my filters, you'll see exactly what that then does. It brings us out the report just for them. And indeed, we could then print that, download that, etc., etc. You'll notice that, again, it's a different report to the first one. So we do have some additional options. So depending on the type of report that you've got, you will have other abilities to add or remove information from there. So here, if I only wanted to see time and I didn't want to see rates or amounts, I could simply update the report to include just that information. So this is all about exploration. If you haven't had a look at the reports that are available to you, I would absolutely encourage that you do. Even if you take, 20 minutes on a break once in a while just to go through and have a look at what is available within the system. It just helps build your knowledge about what you can produce, what it includes, and how it would benefit you. So again, have a look at what's there. Start billable time report, again, within a date range, looking at what we've put through the system, looking at the values that we've got against that. Percentages, again, it's always about the performance against your estimated time. So again, I would look at things like that. If it's, in this case, is this one looking at, yes, this is looking at what's billed against what we've raised.
Yep.
So here we've got 3 hours, but we've billed the 3 hours, so it's at 100%. I can't see if I've got anything less than 100. I'm obviously either billing all or nothing at this stage. But yes, these are really, really good reports in terms of what you can achieve. So do have a look at those whenever you get the chance. But standard reports are only half the battle. We have custom reports within the system. So custom reports give you an almost limitless capability, and I'm going to stick my neck out there and say that it is almost limitless in terms of what you
when
can
you hand over to me, you'll stick your neck out.
Ah, you don't have to show it all, Liz, but we just want to get some ideas of what can be achieved. I'm going to stop my screen share there and you can just jump on there, Liz. But
Okay.
yes, in terms of custom reports, they are extremely, extremely flexible. But with that flexibility comes, would you say, quite a bit of knowledge requirement, would we say, on that one, Liz?
Yeah, but once you've picked up the skills, it's not that difficult. It's about knowing where the data is and how it's linked, and then you know where to pull it out. So let's
They tend to follow a very similar building process, don't they?
They do, and once you've got that knack, it's okay. You can see my screen, okay?
We got that there, Liz. No problem at all.
Good. So first thing to say, just before you dive into reporting, is make sure that your user has Report Builder full access on, and that will enable you to actually build. You don't need to give all of your team full access, because when you build a report, you can just publish a report directly to them. They don't actually need full access.
Got to admit, can you also mention about the financial reports, because I forgot to mention that one. So accessing the reports. Yeah, if we're looking at staff privileges, that one right there that says financial reports, that gives you access to the standard reports. All of them. Can't choose some and not others. It's all of them, unfortunately. But yeah,
that's true. Be quite nice if they were split out into what is money reports and job reports. But there we go. Let's get stuck into custom reports. I've already seen a couple of juicy questions on the Q&A. I'll leave you to look at that now. The first thing I just wanted to show you is this. Not from a technical point of view, but I just wanted to give you a snapshot of what it looks like underneath. So these are all of the tables of Workflow Max underneath, and there's a heck of a lot there. You do not need to know these tables, but just to give you an idea, the report builder, what it's doing is kind of sitting on top of these tables and making it easy for you to build reports. So if you're geeky like me, you are interested in how it's all made up. But there we are. I know.
I like that screen. I think that helps people appreciate exactly how big the reporting engine is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I'm going to build out a couple of ones that I get asked for very frequently. I know you've got a couple of asks in the Q&A, which I will also cover. So leading on from that financial summary report, there's another one which is often asked for. So if I click create custom report, now David showed the single financial summary and the grouped financial summary, but if you don't want to read through a whole 33 page PDF of that, you can just build a very simple version of that on screen, so which you then see all of your jobs on one screen, which is quite nice. So if I call it or job position or anything, so always give it a meaningful name. This description field I actually find quite useful, because if whoever's running the report, if they hover over the eye, it just tells them exactly what that report is going to be showing. So this is a snapshot of all our live jobs, for example. Report type. So these tables are the ones that I showed you in that other tab. So logically, you can say, well, I am reporting on a job, so likely it's going to be job, but you will get the hang of all of these different tables and what resides in them. So I'll pick job. Step 2, what do we want to display on the report? So here's all of our fields, and again, you'll get to know all the fields, so you'll know that you'll want the job number, you want the job name, you might want the client, maybe. You might either use the budget field or the quoted value, whichever you use more. If you have a quote, then job quoted is your total contract value, most likely. Then you might want to show what's our total estimated cost for delivering the job, our internal cost. What's our total estimated time? What is our total billable at the moment? So how much time have we put into the job? That is, we will compare then that against our quoted to see how we're tracking. We might want to know what we've invoiced, because we'll compare that against our billable as well. Is our billing above or below our current work in progress? Might want to know the date of last invoice, because you might have missed something. You could add the manager, job manager, and then you could filter these reports by manager. So you might just have, I just want to see mine, David wants to see his, etc. And you want to know the profit. So you've got profit as an amount, profit as a percentage. Our criteria. So here's the famous date picker. I know this is confusing on a lot of tables, because there are a lot of tables where you think, I don't really care about the date, I just want all my jobs. So if that is the case, then just go right back in time. Just think of this date range as a first big scoop of data, and then you can narrow it down in the next bit. So I just randomly picked 2011, and I'll take that up to whenever I plan to be retired. And I'm going to use, I tend to use the date created, because I know that users can't change that date. So anything that was created, i.e. everything in my system. And the next bit where I can filter that potentially very large data set into something smaller, that's what I do with my filters. So I only want to see my live jobs. I would probably have a separate report for completed jobs, because you might have a different process of evaluating your completed jobs. So I would say I'd like the status to exclude anything that's cancelled or completed. So that just whittles down this big data set into a slightly smaller one. I could choose to group it if I wanted. Grouping might be good if I wanted to do it by job manager, maybe. So if I remember that grouping, it's always the first field on the left of the report that is the grouper. So I'm going to say, yes, we will group that report. I rarely use this one. Display the last field if it were a numeric on the last line. It just messes things up. So keep it on the same line. Who can review this? Who can review the report? So this is the bit where you can publish out to the members of your team, so they don't need access to Report Builder. You just want them to be able to go to reports and run their own report. So I can add as many as whoever I want in there. So once I'm happy with that, I bypass preview and I go straight to save and generate.
Works a lot better.
Like to live on the edge. So while it's calculating, yes, you're going to get the green spinning wheel, and then your data will appear. So let's just have a look. This is the report that clients tend to use on a sort of a weekly basis or 2 weekly to sort of see where everything's at. So you can see what kind of data you're getting. Well, we quoted 84. Our estimated time is at 247. I could put the actual time field in there if I wanted, just to compare where we are. Our billable is at 17. So I've, tracking against that, we're quite low. We've actually invoiced 28, so we've invoiced more than we've worked. So our current profit is sitting at this and the date we last invoiced. So this is a useful way just to have everything on one screen. And then of course, each project manager is grouped there. And you'll get a total by project manager or whichever field you've chosen to group by. So that's quite useful. A quick way to pull financials out to one screen. Obviously, you can export that to PDF now or to CSV and just drop it into Excel. If you're going to do Excel manipulation, I would remove the grouping because you just want a flat table in Excel. You don't really want a line and then the next set of data. So it depends if you're going to work off this off screen. Grouping's good. Otherwise, I would take it off. So that is one that's frequently asked for. Another one that I'll do on a different bit of data is sales pipeline. That's often asked for. So you might want to look at all the quotes that you've had in and what position they're at, because you want to work on your sales pipeline. So this is all our outstanding quotes, so we know what business we've got out there. So this one is obviously going to be a quote, and you'll notice that some of the tables are split down. So if I just wanted to look at the cost in my quote, that's a separate report, but I'm just looking overall at my quotes. Probably I'm interested in the date. I'm interested in the client. I never know why client is not the first one in the list. It's when you type in client, you get client manager.
It doesn't even say client name. It's always been called client. It's just,
I know.
Yeah.
Weird,
this is the thing about report building, though. You've got to learn the foibles, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. There's my quote name. I want to know what I've quoted. So the amount, quote amount. Have I got the expiry date? I haven't got the expiry date there. No, I haven't. So here we go. Can't have that. Anything else I want in there? I think that's okay. And then this date range is actually more useful because I am interested in looking at, for example, last month. That's, yeah, I'm not interested in all my quotes, just everything.
Click on that drop down list. Let's just see.
Yeah,
valid too. You got your expiry date in there.
Different field.
So
thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
valid too.
I'm new to this, so I'm still learning.
We've only been doing it over 10 years, Liz.
I know. It's webinar brain. There's my quote date. I'm going to set a filter because I only want to know the ones that are not yet accepted. So if I use quote status and if I exclude declined, I'm not interested in draft. We're still working on those. So I'm not interested in accepted. So anything that's issued or revised, potentially I'm interested in. Don't really
Just
want
a
to
quick
group it.
Those ones, Liz. I've got to admit, I still fall foul of where it says excludes. I always think, I think in terms of includes for a filter, I might just be me. But yeah, if you don't get the right result, check that and see whether you've got includes or excludes set appropriately.
Yeah, so it used to default in, that other product.
I find that really hard to get away from.
I know. Old dog, new tricks, the score.
Very old dog.
I didn't say that. Rose not interested in grouping. I might be if I've got lots from the same client, but I'm not particularly. So that's what I'm going to generate, and this just gives me a view of my pipeline. Notice we can't yet report on the salesperson in the quotes. You get that field in sales. Yeah, so that would be a good one to have. Let's take that back. I don't know. I've got some more stuff in there, I'm sure. There we are. So I can take a quick check on my pipeline and I can see the amount outstanding. I'm probably going to keep an eye on the valid to dates. And I might have another report that says, just show me the quotes that are expiring this month if I didn't want to work off of the quote, the quote screen, which would show me my expired ones. So that's a useful one. And the next one, should we do a bit of WIP? Shall I be
Ooh,
brave
go
and do
for it.
WIP?
Living
All right.
dangerously. Yes, we like it.
I am. All right.
Probably one of the
So-
most popular reports at the minute, I would say, and was one of the hotly anticipated when it was still in production.
Yeah. Well, you say popular, but you don't mean that, do you? You just mean needed.
Needed, yes, needed. Needed is
Yeah,
probably a
needed.
bit.
Yeah. So why might you want to look at your WIP ledger? Let's just talk about that first. If I go and open my WIP ledger, this screen obviously is really neat because it shows us everything that's going on. Here's my big picture of WIP. I know that I've got 698 of WIP out there, and I've got this graph of aged WIP, so I can see in August I've got an amount, June I've got an amount. What if I wanted to drill down on what is this WIP made up of? I could, well, I can't do it from this table because this table gives me a breakdown of everything in that box. It tells me project by project what my WIP is. But if I wanted just to break that down a bit, I could create a custom report. So I could say WIP breakdown within a time frame. So this is WIP. That's curious. Oh, it's just catching up, isn't it?
Yeah,
There you
it's
go.
taking its
WIP. Yeah, WIP ledger. So the transactions inside the WIP are WIP ledger. If you wanted to access reporting on this screen, it's work in progress. So that's where this screen pulls from. But I don't want that. I want the actual details. So again, I want the job number. I want to know the date, ledger date. So that's the date that was written to the ledger, be it cost or time. I want the type, ledger type. Is it time? Is it cost? Is it something else? Additional disbursement. I want the person who wrote it to the ledger staff. I want the time that they did, ledger time. If it's it obviously there's not a time entry, it's not going to come out like that. Is it billable? And then I want to know the billable amount, probably billable amount that's on my ledger. So I could, this is pulling off every single thing for a time frame. So my criteria also is logical for this one. So let's say we're looking at show me August WIP. So I'm carefully clicking my little calendar. There's my August WIP. Any other filters? Shall we say that it's not been billed? So we want everything that isn't billed on the ledger. Any other filters you would generally put in there, David, or is that
pretty much, I think that would be about it. It does depend on what we're building it for, but yeah, that would look good.
Yeah. So you might want to categorize this by, I am going to group that by job actually, just so I can see by job. Some people will group this by, again, by job manager, because they'll want each manager to look at their own WIP. So what have I got? 1031. I've got these disbursements. I could probably, if it were time, I might want to pick out the task if I wanted to drill down into that. So that's who did it. There's the time. It's billable, the billable amount. So I can look at here. I've got 13 hours of WIP on the ledger for this job that was written this month, and that's my billable amount. So that gives you a breakdown. Now, if I had the total here, I could check that against that because it should match. David's going to say, no, it may not match. And actually true, it may not match because it may have this. Oh, I know what you're going to say. This may have carried forward WIP, I imagine, on there. So they're not going to match exactly. But we want to know
it's
what
worth
we'd actually
mentioning, I think. Yeah, the WIP dashboard that you see is it's flexible in a number of ways, particularly because you can move the date now as you could in the old system. So if you were looking at, say, the WIP for the end of last month, it will show you a snapshot of what the overall WIP did look like at the end of last month. That's
Yep.
quite considerably different to the WIP ledger reporting that you have access to under your custom reporting, which is still only reporting on the current WIP position at this point in time, but filtering it in various ways to only bring you through certain elements of that current WIP. So
Yes.
that's an interesting one. It's certainly that's more than the scope of just this session to go into in full detail and explain, but it's it's all just about being careful that you understand what your criteria are delivering you in these reports.
I think the reason for picking on the WIP report, even though it can be a bit of a can of worms, is that the WIP ledger obviously is the absolute core of workflow. So every single thing that you do hits that ledger.
It's a ledger item, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, that's where all your data is. So I have clients who part of their month-end process is they run the WIP, the unbilled WIP for that month, and then they might be looking at things like, well, how much have we written off? How much are our write-ons? You know, that's a whole nother topic, but there's lots of data you can get out of your WIP ledger once you understand.
It is a really good habit to run that
is.
type of report literally on the month-end date so that you can then compare back over to previous reports that you've written. So yeah.
I think a webinar just on WIP would be the way to go with that. Because
Don't say it, it could happen yet. Absolutely. There's enough to cover in an hour, believe me.
How many phone calls have we had about WIP? Come on,
oh,
hours and hours
between the
and
two
hours.
of us, days of our lives.
Yeah, not exaggerating at all.
No, seriously.
Yeah. So let's move on to a different one, which is less complicated, but still requested. So the other thing that you might want to report on is your job costs, because again, in your financial summary, it's giving you a bucket amount by line. But what if you wanted to drill down and say, let's look at all our mileage claims this month. Let's look at all of our, I don't know, everything we've spent with a particular supplier this month. There's lots of ways you can spin it. So job cost detail, let's call it. So let's show all actual costs per job in time frame. So this one is going to be a job cost report, table layout.
So much easier to find what you're after now that you can type in a search, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. So we do want the job number. I want the cost date. I want the name of the cost. That's changed. That used to be cost description, I believe.
Yep.
We want the unit cost, quantity, total cost, amount. Let's put supplier in there as well.
That's one I would usually put in. Yep.
Yeah. Notes. So you might have some cost notes from there. Remember that the job cost is going to come in two ways, either via receipting in a purchase order or via you actually manually creating a cost on the job, which in fact you're more likely to have notes in that scenario. Again, this filter works. This is about the date of the cost. I'm not interested in my job date, so that works for me. I might just ping it back a month. I don't know what I've got in the system. Filter, I do want a filter, and the one you need to make sure you use is this one. Actual cost is, there again, defaults to negative. Actual cost is yes. So you're not interested in your estimated cost, the ones that don't have the green toggle on in the cost table, because you haven't really spent that yet. They've either come from a quote and you haven't spent the money, or you've added them onto the job and again you haven't spent the money. So make sure you filter on actual, otherwise you get some really funny numbers. I'm going to group it on job name, job number, because I want to see. Let's see what that pulls out. So this is often used for staff expenses, mileage, and you'll have a particular report possibly for mileage. So you can filter out using the cost name. So if you're using standard cost names like accommodation, mileage, site visit, travel, etc., you might want to filter out those in in a report.
You can also use custom fields in your reports as well. And
You can,
again,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
one of the great benefits of the custom reports, is that they can pull in your custom field data as well.
I would say on the job cost, a popular field is to have sort of a tag or a type. So you might say, I've bought a load of paint. So that would be I have a cost type drop down, and I would probably tag that as decorating supplies. So if I were wanting to move up a level and group my costs into sort of buckets, then you could use a custom field for that.
Absolutely.
So what have we got here? There we go, we've got some costs on here. So cost of 15, I've only ordered one, that's my amount, there's my supplier. So you can quickly see what you've had a total of 13 units, which total cost of 13,245. So that will be on your financial summary under the relevant line, and obviously in your job cost table. Again, export that as you need. Remove the grouping if you're going to export flat and manipulate it in Excel, but you may just want to work off here, and you might just say, well, actually, we just need the PDF. That's good enough. So let's just do a quick PDF export, because we can now. So there's my PDF export.
Cool.
There we are.
So nice to have
maybe
that custom reports.
Yeah, custom report for comparing budgets within a date range.
Oh.
Yes, that is quite
comparing
tricky,
budgets.
actually. On the one hand, I was tempted to pull out a time report and pull out the actual time within a date range per task. But the only concept of budget I've got on that is the total time, isn't it? The estimated time on the task. But
this is just it. I think because you can only have a single budget against that, it depends what you're applying it to. So this comes down sometimes to the structure of your jobs. If you've got a specific task in each month that has a budget against it, or perhaps a specific job that relates to each month that has a budget of time in it, then absolutely it's the sort of reporting that can be achievable. I think if you're having tasks that extend across multiple months, they can only have a single budget. So you can't necessarily, I mean, you could report upon that whole budget figure against what has been worked in that specific month. So if I had a 3-month budget that said I've got 30 hours across this quarter, if I then ran the report that said in month 1, how much have I spent? So I've spent 10 hours against, and you can still show your budget of your 30 hours. You could do it that way. So that might work.
You could do that as a time report. Fairly simple to build that one.
Again, this is the other skill that comes with experience of working with the report custom reporting tools. I nearly called it Report Builder again, Liz. Stop me.
No.
With the custom reporting is understanding what information is available through which report. So the two that I would draw your attention to there, for example, at least in what we're looking at here, is the difference between the time report and the WIP Ledger report. So the WIP Ledger report seems to give you almost identical information to the time report, but that's not the case. For example, the time report will show you the cost of your time. The WIP Ledger report will not show you the cost of your time.
Yes. Good point.
The WIP Ledger report will show you whether the time has been billed or not. The time report will not show you whether the time has been billed or not. So there's some interesting differences that you will start to come across as you foray into building your own reports. But there's no shortcuts around this. There's no single help article that you could write on this that wouldn't be the size of War and Peace. You'd need to simply experiment with this. And certainly this is why experts and the support team are out there to help you, because when you come up against questions, you should ask them. I would far rather that people ask the question at an early stage rather than spend days upon days trying to work out whether something is possible. So we can certainly help commute that.
So this is a basic version of possibly what you could pull out. You could pull out the task. So within a date range, so that's your period of budget you want to look at. Pull out the job, pull out the task, pull out the time totaled. If you don't want every single entry, use the totaled field. I know it's out of line here, but that is the time totaled. There's your estimated time. And then we could add in, no, that's our total, yeah, what we've spent against what our estimate is.
You do also have access to time remaining as well, which is another one.
You do,
but
yeah.
bearing in mind, time remaining is again a blanket one, rather like the budget. It's not applying to a specific part of that period. So if your task lasts 3 months, it would be looking at what you've got left across the whole 3 months, not just what you were spending in 1 month.
Yeah. So that's a fairly, and if you have the task dates, obviously you could add those in there. I think that, Kelly, that's probably as good as you're going to get with budget reporting on tasks. Okay, so before we finish, I just want to mention 2 other things. And this is if you want to take your reports to a different level. So here we've got our custom reports within Workflow. The next thing you might want to do is manipulate those in Excel, because you may want to join it with other data. You may want to create graphs, pivot tables, all that kind of thing. So if I ungroup my WIP ledger, so in that case, as we said before, keep them flat reports, don't group them. There's my WIP breakdown. I put that into CSV. And then what you can do is, depending on, you know, how good your Excel skills are, you've got all your data. You dump all your data in the first tab, and then you may have other tabs here which are pre-configured to read.
We're not seeing your Excel there at the moment, Liz.
Oh, this is Zoom again, isn't it?
Yes.
There we are. You should be seeing it now.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what's exported to CSV.
That's what's exported, yeah. So if you wanted to get a bit snazzier, you could build tabs that did different things on the dynamic data that you're dropping in it. So, you know, you might want to insert pivots or have pre-configured pivot tables where you can say, I want to drill down by job number and billable amount. And you might even include your write-offs in here. You may even include things like your category of job, so that you could say, are we writing more stuff off in a certain business line? You know, there's lots of things you can do with that raw data. So that's sort of the first way you can do it. The second thing, which I showed you initially, is something a bit different. It's called Sync Hub, and this is a way to push all of your Workflow Max data up into a cloud database. Then you can connect to that either Excel or Power BI. So let me go back to my original screen. So that's another way of doing it. So you can build, it's like a dynamic repository. It just polls workflow, pulls it up, and then you can create a dashboard in Power BI if you're interested in dashboarding. That's another way of doing it. The only thing
awful lot of things possible to Sync Hub, yes, indeed.
It does, yeah. The only thing you've got to bear in mind, though, is the WIP ledger data doesn't go into Sync Hub, and custom rates don't go into Sync Hub. So they will do when the next version of the API is released later this year, I believe. But just, you know, be aware of that that limitation. If you still want to use Sync Hub, but you do want to export WIP, then or actually, if you want, sorry, better said, if you'd like to use Power BI and you want to use WIP, therefore you can't use Sync Hub, what you can do is you create your set of reports in Workflow, and then you export those as CSV. You can drop them into SharePoint and then have Power BI automatically read them from SharePoint. So if you go to settings, you will see in integration the other possibilities around reporting. So you've got snazzy Excel sheets, you've got Sync Hub, you've got Power BI, you've also got Dashboard Insights and Itani. They are dashboarding tools. I haven't used either of those yet. I don't know about you, David, but
no, unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity yet.
But but that, they're all there to give you another layer of reporting on top of workflow.
Very, very
Have we got
good.
any questions left to answer? Because I realise we've only got a minute left.
I think it's pretty much been dealt with at this point. I've got to admit, I think we've covered pretty much as we can within the space of time. We've literally hit 10 o'clock there, so we are at the end of our session, I would say. So I hope that's been useful, folks. I hope that has given you at least the beginnings of some insight into the power of the reporting within Workflow Max. So whether it be the standard reports that you just need to get familiar with and understand when you want to use those and how they can help, or whether you want to start dipping your toe into the wonderful realm of custom report creation, and then the extended reporting that the bolt-on apps will provide you with. It's a whole world of possibilities. So yes, indeed, as you said, there may be many more webinars about more detailed elements of this. So whether we do look at an element of WIP and WIP reporting, particularly possible. But yes, we'd love to hear your comments on that in the future and see what you'd like us to cover. But thank you so much for your time and your attendance today, and for your suggestions as well.
Yes.
And thank you so much, Liz, for going through that. It was a very, very good demonstration of what we can achieve with the custom reporting there. All right. Thanks very much, folks. Have a great day.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again
too.
soon. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.